We begin the Gemara today on Daf Pei Beis Amud Beis, the last two lines where it says Eisvei. The Gemara will now ask questions on Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. The Gemara here spoke about a case where a woman made a neder not to eat 2 loaves of bread. One of them is a good loaf of bread, and if she's not eating it, it's an inui nefesh, it's going to afflict her, it's painful for her. And the other loaf of bread is bad quality, and it doesn't really matter to her. So the question is, could the husband nullify the entire neder or not? A husband could only nullify a neder which is inui nefesh. So Shmuel says, since he could nullify half of the neder, so he can nullify the entire neder. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the chelik of the neder which is inui nefesh, he could nullify. The chelik of the neder that's not inui nefesh, he cannot. So the Gemara here, as I said, will ask on Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Eisvei, the question was asked. It says, this is in Nazir here. Mishnah or a Braisa, I'm not sure. So it says there, Ha'isha shenodra benazir. A woman that makes a neder of Naziris. V'haisa shaisa yayin. So she took upon herself this Naziris, but she's not following her Naziris. She's drinking wine. Well, of course, Naziris, you're not allowed to drink wine, you're not allowed to become tameh, you're not allowed to cut your hair. And she's drinking wine, umetama lemesim, and she's also becoming tameh to a dead person. So what happens? Harezu sefeges es arbaim. So she gets malchus for not keeping her naziris. For la baila, but if her husband nullified the neder, vihi la yada, she wasn't aware that the husband nullified the neder. In other words, from here you just see the simple thing that the husband could nullify the neder. It doesn't matter if she's aware of it. It doesn't matter if she's not aware of it. The neder is nullified. So she's drinking wine and becoming tamei. She gets no malchus because the neder was nullified. So even though she gets no malchus, what the Braisa is real, or the Mishnah is really trying to say is no malchus, but she still will have to do tshuva for what she did because she wasn't aware that her husband nullified the neder, and she went ahead and transgressed on the neder she made. But no malchus because the fact is there's no neder here, no naziris here. So now on this the Gemara asks, if you're going to say mefer lemisana, a husband only has the power to nullify that part of the neder that his wife made that she's getting affliction from. But the part of the neder that's not an affliction for her, the husband cannot nullify. If so, over here when you look at naziris, a neder of naziris, is that a inui nefesh for the wife or not? It depends which part of the naziris. So the Gemara says, Dilme, perhaps, and the Ran says that this perhaps in the Gemara is lav dafke, because it's a fact, so, not just perhaps. Minyayin, this latzara hafrila. The wine, which is the naziris that she can't eat, so that's painful for her, she can't drink wine. But min chartzen min zog lo yafrila. But her not drinking, part of the naziris is also that you can't drink, eat, that is, from the seeds of the grapes or the skins of the grape. The fact that she can't eat that, that's not something which is painful for her. So lo yafrila, that's something that the husband cannot nullify. So if so, over here in this braisa, again, the Gemara concludes this: the halai is latzaira. So she has no tsar from not eating the skins or the seeds of the grape. If so, the question is in this brayse v'tisbek is harboim. So even after the husband nullified the neder and she didn't keep the neder, so she should be getting malchus for not keeping her naziris in the part that the husband did not nullify. How could the brayse say the husband nullified the naziris completely? He didn't nullify the naziris completely. Okay, and the Ran adds, if the Braisa Take would hold that it's only because she was drinking wine, that's why she gets no malchus. But if she would Take be eating from these seeds that are not nullified, then she does get malchus. The Braisa would have said that as a big chiddush over here. The Braisa wouldn't just say these 2 cases that it says. It seems from the Braisa, no matter what she eats, the entire naziris is nullified.
What about Tamil and Mason?
Oh, the Gemara is going to come to that soon. It's a different story. The Gemara is coming to that. And when it brings another Braisa. Amar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef explains, no, there's no question from here on Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Ein naziris lachatzan. When it comes to accepting naziris upon yourself, as far as this part of naziris is concerned, which means this naziris of not eating anything that comes from grapes, whether the seeds, whether the skins, whether the wine, there's no half naziris. You can't accept upon yourself, I'm not going to drink the wine. That aspect of naziris. If you accept upon yourself naziris, it includes everything together. So what's the Gemara answering? When Rabbi Yochanan said before regarding the 2 loaves of bread, the 2 loaves of bread is not a neder that you can't take one without the other. You can make a neder not to eat one loaf of bread. You can make a neder not to eat a second loaf of bread, or not to eat 2 loaves of bread. There, Rabbi Yechanan says, when she says she's not going to eat 2 loaves of bread, it's really 2 different parts of a neder. The part of the neder which is a inu nefesh, the husband could nullify. The part of the neder which is not a pain for her, he cannot nullify. When it comes to naziris, though, it's one naziris. You can't split the naziris, and therefore over here, Rabbi Yechanan would agree that the husband could nullify the entire naziris. Okay, now the Gemara goes off on a side point regarding Naziris. Amalei Abaye. Abaye is going to ask a question on the exact words that Rav Yosef used when he gave his answer. Abaye says, what did Rav Yosef say? Ein Nazirus l'chatzayim, which is mashma accepting Nazirus. You cannot accept a half a Nazirus. So Abaye asks him that. It's mashma from the way you said your answer. Hakarbin l'chatzin Nazirus ikke. But there is a concept of bringing a carbon for Nazirus for a half Nazirus. What's a full Naziris? So Stam Naziris is 30 days. So what Abai is saying is, let's say the Naziris wasn't 30 days, the Naziris was only 15 days. Let's say the husband nullified the Naziris after 15 days, so it turns out that the Naziris was only for 15 days. Right? So now what happens now? Could you bring a carbon for a half Naziris? When the Naziris ends, you're supposed to bring 3 karbanas. So Ayla, Chattas, and Shlamim. Is there such a thing as a Naziris for a half a Naziris? Karbanas for a half a Naziris? So Abaye, the Ran says, you know what Abaye's diak was? Rav Yosef said, Ein Nazirus l'chatzoin. Rav Yosef, that is, did not say, Ein chatzoin linazirus. That there's no concept of halves for any part of Nazirus. If you would have said that, it would have meant that even for Karbanis, there's no Indian of a carbon for half Nazirus. When he says, Ein Nazirus l'chatzoin, so Rav Yosef is saying that only goes on the actual acceptance of the Nazirus regarding the wine and the grape skins and so on, that it's all one, but not as far as Karbanis. From Rav Yosef, it's mashma that you could bring Karbanis for a half a Nazirus. So as I said, this is the side point the Gemara goes off over here on, and the Gemara will ask on this from what it says in Masechta Nazir. So Meisvei, the question was asked on this. Isha shanadra bin nazir, a woman, so she made a neder to be a nazir v'frisha be'emta, and not only she made a neder to be a nazir, she already separated the behemah that's needed for the naziris. Right, the behemah here we're talking about a case where this woman took upon herself naziris, and then afterwards she became tameh. When you become tameh, you also have to bring a carbon for that. What's the carbon you have to bring for when you become tameh? You have to bring a carbon asham, and that's a behemah. And besides that, you have to bring 2 birds, a chatas and a oila. 2 birds have to be brought. So she already separated the karbanis. And now, afterwards, the husband went and nullified the neder, which turns out that she became tameh. So really, it wasn't a naziris, and therefore she shouldn't have to bring those karbanis. So it says over there in the Braise, Mevia chatas ha'oif. So the chatas ha'oif, for this tumah, she will have to bring, ve'ena mevia eilas ha'oif. But the eila, the bird which is an eila, that she does not have to bring. So the Gemara's question is, V'i amrit ein carbon l'chatzin naziros. If you're going to say that there's no such a thing as a carbon for a half a naziris, like Abaye said, if so, amai mevia chatas ha'oif. Why should she even bring the chatas ha'oif over here for this half a naziros? It's not. It wasn't a naziris at all, so she shouldn't have to bring anything. Right? There was only 15 days of the naziris. It was a half a naziris. The husband came and nullified it in the middle, and she became tameh. So whatever karbanis she should have to bring for that tumah of naziris, she shouldn't have to bring because there's no naziris there's no karbanis for a half a naziris. So the Gemara says, okay, so from the fact that she has to bring the chatas ha'oif shows that there is a carbon that you bring for a half a naziris. Ve'elamai, so what are you going to say? Yesh carbon l'chatzin naziris. There is a carbon that's brought for a half a naziris. That's why it says that she still will have to bring the chatas ha'oif. If so, why is she only bringing the chatas ha'oif? Shalish behemis ba'il asuye. By naziris, there are 3 behemis you have to bring, which are chatas, oila, and shlamim. And when the Gemara here brings chatas, oila, and shlamim, so the Gemara, according to the first pshat in the Ran, it's bringing the 3 karbanas that a nazir brings when the naziris ends, not by the tumah of naziris. When naziris ends, you bring chatas, oila, and shlamim. So just like when the naziris ends, there are the 3 karbanas you bring the chatas, oila, and shlamim. Similar, what the Gemara is asking is, over here, when she became tameh, and you have to bring a asham, and then 2 birds, the oila and the chatas bird. Why does it say in this Braise that she only brings the bird which is for the chatas? She should bring all 3. Because you're telling me that there is karbanis naziris for a half a naziris. That's what the Gemara is asking back on the question that it asked on Abaya. So basically, we're sort of stuck over here. Why is she only bringing this one carbon, the carbon of the bird? If you say that you bring karbanis for half an Naziris, you should bring all the karbanis she has to bring. If you say that it's not, that there's no karbanis for half an Naziris, you should bring nothing. Why only this chatas ha'oif? Ella, the Gemara says, la'olam, really, we go back to what Abaye said. Ein carbon l'chatzin Naziris. There's no carbon for half a Naziris. Not for the tara of the Naziris, not for if she became Tomei. There's no karbanis for half a Naziris. V'chatas ha'oif the masya, the reason why she brings this chatas ha'oif, mishom the chatas ala safik, or others adding over here into the Gemara, chatas ha'oif asya ala safik. We find a unique thing regarding chatas ha'oif, that this is a kind of carbon that's brought even for a safik. You don't find this by any other karbanis. Where do you find such a thing? This is regarding a woman that's a yeldis, that is, she gave birth, and it's not clear if what she gave birth to was a baby or it was just a nafel, or in other words, it was not yet a vlad that she has to bring the karbanis of a yeldis. So what does she do? If she wants to be mitayar herself, to be able to eat kachim, so there are karbanis that she has to bring, and one of them is there's a oila saif she has to bring, there's a chata saif she has to bring, but we don't know if she's chayiv to bring this carbon or not. So the oila saif you could bring, and you can make a condition that if I have to bring it, so then it's for the leida. If not, this should just be an oila. But by chata saif you can't make such a condition. By chata saif either you chayiv to bring it or not. So what do? So over there, the Gemara learns out from a pasuk that this chata saif could be brought even in a situation where it's a suffix. So we see a unique thing regarding chata saif. This is the only carbon we say that we're not concerned about maybe bringing a chulin into the azara. No, she can bring it even if it's a suffix. Therefore, the Gemara is saying over here as well, even though over here there's a suffix on this naziris, so to speak, or really there isn't a naziris at all. In other words, it's only a half a naziris. And Abaye is saying that for a half a naziris there's no karbanis, but nevertheless the chatas ha'oif could be brought. Okay, but so there's something that has to be added over here to the Gemara, and the Gemara in Nazir explains this. This doesn't yet answer this. You're telling me that you find by chatas ha'oif that you bring it for a suffix, but over here, according to Abaye, this is not even a suffix, because Abaye says there's no carbon naziris for a half a naziris, and if it's a half a naziris, there shouldn't be any carbon at all. It's not a suffix. So the Gemara there adds that there is still an inyan of bringing the karbanis, because the reason why a nazir brings a chatas when the naziris is over is because the acceptance of the naziris is the avera. The fact that a person was mazer atzmai menayayin, the Eibusha doesn't want you to separate from these things, that's the avera. So even if it's true that there's no half for naziris, but the very fact that she accepted upon herself this naziris and she kept the naziris, let's say, for 15 days, so that's enough of a reason that she could bring the chatas ha'oif. The other karbanis she doesn't bring, the chatas ha'oif that we find you bring even for a situation of a suffix, here as well it's brought for these 15 days that she kept her naziris. Okay, so this is, like I said, a side point regarding the naziris, the karbanis of a naziris. The Gemara now goes back to what Rabbi Yechanan said before, that the husband could only nullify the part of the neder which is an inni nefesh, and not the part of the neder which is not an inni nefesh. And the Gemara asks, from the same minyan regarding naziris on that opinion of Rabbi Yechanan. So Eisvei, the question was asked, Ha'isha shenadra. So here's basically the same Mishnah that we brought before. Some actually say it is actually the very same Mishnah, or the same Paraisa. Ha'isha shenadra ben nazir. So this woman took upon herself naziris, v'nitmis, and she became tameh. After she became tameh, her husband nullified the neder. But nevertheless, mevia chatas ha'oif, as we just learned. So she doesn't bring the other karbanis, but the chatas ha'oif she doesn't bring. So the Gemara just explained this. Even though there's no karbanis for a half a naziris, but chatas ha'oif you do bring. Ve'em mevia eilas ha'oif, but the eilas ha'oif she does not bring. But now the question is, what power does the husband have to nullify this part of the naziris? Which part of the naziris are we talking about now? We're talking about the naziris, the tumah part of the naziris, like you brought up before. What we see over here is the husband could nullify the tumah halachas of naziris, that she can't become tameh. The husband could nullify that. Now, if you're going to say a husband could only nullify the part of a neder his wife makes, which is an affliction for her, he can't nullify what's not an affliction for her. If so, dilma, perhaps we should say miyayin this late side, and again, this dilma here in the Gemara is lav dafke. So miyayin, this latzaira hafala. Wine, which in the Naziris is something which is painful for she can't drink wine. So hafala, that doesn't could nullify. Mitumas makes the less latzaira, but when it comes to this, the part of the Naziris, that she cannot become tummy to a mace, that's not something which is an affliction for her. So lo yafrala, the husband can't nullify that. So why are we saying that the husband nullified the part of the Naziris, which is the tumah, and therefore she doesn't bring all the karbanis, she doesn't bring the ayla saif or the ashram, she only brings the chata saif. So the Gemara answers, Amri, they answered and they said, this actually is an affliction for her. Tumas mace, the fact that she cannot be metama to a mace, nami is latzaira. It is something which is painful for her, and the husband couldn't nullify it. The chsiv, the pasuk says, Vacha yitin alibay. The living should take to heart. The beginning of that pasuk says, Toiv lelechas al beis evel, milelechas al beis mishta. Better go to the house of an oval than to a chasana. Bashahu kol adam, that's the end of every person. V'achayit nalibay, the living should take to heart. So how does the Gemara taish this pasuk? V'tanya, we learned in a brayse that Hoya Rab Meir would say about this pasuk. What does it mean that the living should take to heart? What is it that you should take to heart? The yispud and lay. If when someone passes away and you will attend to him and you will eulogize him, so then when you pass away you will be eulogized as well. The yifkun, the one that cries when someone else passes away, yifkun lay. So people will cry when he passes away. The yikber, someone that goes and buries others, yikberune, when he passes away, he will be buried. So therefore, over here, when his wife takes this neder not to go to a levaya, not to be metama to a mace, it's a tsar for her, because she can't be metama. So now she knows that people won't attend to her. So therefore, the husband could be made for the entire neder of Naziris. Right. Yeah. After she became tamei, the baal could make for that neder. He heard about it whenever he hears. B'yom shamai, so he heard about it. He could be not only could he be made for it after she was matame, after she already separated karbanis, he still could be made for, right? Zaktei Mishnah. Continuing the halachas of which kind of nedarim the husband could be made for. Only nedarim that are inu nefesh. That's the category of nedarim we speak about it. So kainam sha'ani nehena lebriyos. If a woman says her neder is that she will not have hana from briyos, from people, from creations, that's what she refer to them as. What does that include? Eina yachal hafer. So this is all briyos. That means she can't have hana from anybody. So she can't get money or anything from anybody. But he still can't nullify the neder. And the Mishnah says, what she could have hana from is beleket shikcha ubepeya. The leket shikcha pei, which is what's supposed to be left in the field, whether in the corner of the field, the things that were forgotten in the field, and so on, and those are things for the poor people to come and take, those produce in the field are hefker. So she can go and get them and take them from hefker because she's not having enough from the owner of the field, from any person, but just from hefker. So therefore, there's no inui nefesh here if she could still come and take from hefker. Talk to Mishnah weiter, and this is not talking over here about a isha, but kainim, leviim, nanimli. Person made a neder that kainim and leviim should not have a nar from me. Yitlu al karchai. So if he says no kainim, no leviim could have a nar from me, so they come and take the trumas and maestris that he separated. They take it from him against his will because he separated them. They belong to the kainim and leviim, whether he likes it or not. What's if the person said kainim elu or leviim elu nanimli? Person made a neder, a specific kainim or specific leviim should not have a nar from me. So then, yitlu acherim. Other kainim, other leviim come and take from the trumas amaisis that he separated. Okay, the Gemara will explain exactly why this is not a contradiction, how we understand this. Okay, the Gemara now focuses on the first part of the Mishnah. What did it say?
The Cain doesn't know what you said on who.
Again, we're not only talking about an isha, we're talking about a person making a neder. And this person says to the kainim, I made a neder, you're not allowed to have a no from me. He tells them, he makes it in front of them. Okay, that chelik of the Mishnah we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara later, but today the Gemara focuses over here on the first part of the Mishnah. So what did it say in the Mishnah? She made a neder that briyos will not have a no from her. So the Mishnah says that's not called ini nefesh. She can't nullify this neder. Alma, what I see from here is efsher the mizana midilei. That the reason why that's not called ini nefesh is because even after she says, I'm not going to have a no from anybody, any briyos, that doesn't include the husband. The Gemara understands now that besides what the Mishnah says afterwards about the leket shikcha peya, that's not the main point here. The main point is that the husband is not briyos. A woman doesn't refer to her husband as briyos, as sound like any creation. The husband is her husband, so she could still have a no from her husband. Miklal, so from this I see the Baal, Lav B'chlal Briyasu. The husband is not included in the expression of Briyas. But Amos Seifa, what does the Mishnah say afterwards? V'yachayla lahanis b'leka shikchopeya. She could also have anah from leka shikchopeya, and it seems that that's the reason why it's not considered to be an affliction for her, because she could still get from leka shikchopeya. So from that we see aval midabal layachla, but from the husband she will not be able to eat. Alme baal b'chlal briyas. So from this it seems that the husband is part of the briyas. Right? In other words, the Gemara understands that right now that the Mishnah is saying two different things, because it said in the Mishnah v'yachayla ilahanis, like another point. Once it says that point v'yachayla ilahanis, it seems like that the husband is part of briyas. So what's going on in the Mishnah? This lashon of briyas, is the husband included in it or not? Amarule, so all the answers as follows. La'olam, the truth is, and the Bachir adds baal lav b'chlal briyasu. The husband is not included in the term briyas. And therefore, the first point the Mishnah is saying is that after she made the neder, and she could still have anah from her husband, so therefore it's not an inu nefesh from her. The husband can give her. And then the Mishnah said another point. V'oid, and besides this, ein yachal avim neshi chayil lahanitz b'leket shikchopeya. Besides this, she could also have anah from leket shikchopeya. It's taka two different points here. It's not a contradiction. Okay, so the Ran explains that just the fact that she could have anah from leket shikchopeya would not be good enough. That wouldn't explain why it's not considered to be an inni nefesh. If she can't have anah from her husband, and the husband is the one that usually provides for her. If you remember, we learned before, the Gemara said that if there's a store that she usually buys from it, her husband usually buys from it, and she says she's not going to eat from that store, it's called leket shikchopeya. It's called a neder of inni nefesh. If she could still take from leket shikchopeya, but she can't take from her husband that usually provides for her, it's going to be inni nefesh. So the Gemara, the Mishnah that is, does add the point of leket shikchopeya, but that alone wouldn't be enough. It has to also say the fact that she could still have anah from her husband. That's all this pshat. So it's really 2 points here. Rava says, so she can take leket shikchopeya. Okay. Rava says la'olam baal b'chlal briyasu. Really, when she made the neder, she could not have anah from her husband. The baal is included b'chlal briyas, since she could not take from it all. Umatam kama. You have to read the Mishnah as a continuation. When it says v'yachayla hi lahanes, that is the only reason why her neder is not any nefesh. Ma tam ein yachal lahafer. What's the reason why the husband can't nullify the neder? The only reason is taka, just this fact that she could be neder from leket shikchopeya. That's it. Not the reason because she could have anah from the husband and from leket shikchopeya. Just the reason of leket shikchopeya. Okay, so the Ram points out that there's a big chiddush here. As I just said, we learned before that if she has a certain store she usually takes from, and she makes a neder not to take from that store, that's a neder of inni nefesh. Here, she can't have anah from her husband that usually provides for her. She could only have anah from the leket shikchopeya, but still, it looks like the leket shikchopeya in this case is something that's more available for her, and therefore it's not considered to be a neder of inni nefesh. Okay. So the Ran discusses this. Okay, now we have a third pshat here in the Mishnah. Rav Nachman says, "La'olam ba lav b'chlal briyasu." Really, the husband is not included in the language of her neder when she said that she's not having anah from briyas, from all creations, from all people. And when the Mishnah says the additional point of leket shikchopeya, what the Mishnah is saying is that nizgarsha yachayil lahanis b'leket shikchopeya. That even when she gets divorced from the husband, so then she will be able to have anah from leket shikchopeya. And that's why that's why the husband cannot nullify this neder, because now when she's married to him, she could have anah from him. And even if the husband divorces her and it'll be the tsar that she doesn't have anyone to provide for, even then she'll also have leket shikchopeya. So the Mishnah is talking about the 2 time periods, whether while he's married to her and whether later. Okay, so those are the 3 pshatim in the Mishnah here.
If she would get divorced, the neder on the Baal would be chal then when she gets divorced, that she can't have enough of the Baal anymore?
If